Hey friends, so in the last video we started with the introduction of recipes view model, and in this video we will add another layer to the view model, which will be called repository. So view model will have an instance of a thing called repository. So let's start with that. We will create another group called repositories, and here we will create a file swift file named recipe repositories. So what is a repository is it is a very standard pattern that is used with MVVM. So repository is basically a class that actually deals with all the operations either with the database or with the networking layer. So we remove that responsibility from our view model to this class called a repository. So if in an application you have the CRUD operations like create, read, update and delete, into a database like with a database or to a networking API layer, so all these operations are in the repository, and then our view model is just calling this repository, getting the response and converting the response into view model for our views to display it. So we will start with creating a class named recipe repositories, and again this will have one method which will be get recipes. So what we will do is we will again so we will just remove this part, cut it, and then we will create a function called get recipes, and here we don't have again recipes and delegate, so we will remove all of this. We won't remove the print, so we can test that the API is being called. Okay, so it's building, and now this will have a completion handler in itself. So the completion handler will be an escaping because we are dealing with a networking call, which will take sorry result of type with an array of recipes and an API error while returning void. So let's see what is the yeah, and here what we will do is just pass the completion handler with the result. So if we try this and remove this switch case, it won't work because this result has a recipe response. So what we have to do is we have to do the switch, and here we have to call the completion handler with success with response dot recipes, and here we can just call with completion failure with error, right? And then we will create the instance of the repository in our view model. So we will have private let repo, and that will be recipe repositories, and here we will call repo.getRecipes, and this will be of type result, and it will be very similar to what we had. So what we can do is instead of doing all this, we can just get back to our this code and create our private let repo and recipe repositories, and we'll just cut this part. I know it's a bit confusing, but that is how it is. And then we'll do repo.getRecipes, completion handler will have a result, and here we can just paste it, and instead of calling it response, we can call it recipes because this result is of type array of recipes and error, and print the recipes, and we can just directly assign the recipes here. So let's try building it and let's run it and see what happens. So you can see the list of recipes is loading successfully after all this change. So what we have done is view controller has a instance of view model, and then view model has an instance of repositories, and then the repository is basically making the networking call. So recipes is calling view model, asking the view model to get the recipes, and then the view model is asking the repository to get the recipes, and then this repository is making the networking call, getting the recipes, returning it back to the view model here, and then here we have the recipes, and then we are passing this recipe or loading saving the recipes in our instance here, and then telling the view controller that the view model has the recipes now with through this delegate, and you can now load the table view again, and this table view can read the recipes from the view model. So that is how we are communicating between view controller, view model, and repositories. So that was all in this video. In the next video, we will create another view model that will represent each row of this recipe. So how to make this code more readable, and I will explain you another benefit of view models there that will ease up our code that we are using here. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next video.